first, and being a visionary is a strategy.
It's all about who are you going to target and what are you going to offer them?
Is how do we structure the overall business so that all its parts?
Every objective can only have one strategy. Strategy is number one, competitive. It has to be a competitive strategy. That's what Michael Porter taught us. And number two is that has to be based on choices. If you don't come up with if you come up with a strategy which is just one strategy, then you know that you've got a problem because you haven't thought through the whole thing in detail. And this was something which actually sort of worried me for a large part of my career. And then I came across a very simple acronym which sort of puts strategy in the right context. And the acronym is GOSART, G-O-S-A-R-T. The G stands for goals. O is for objectives. To meet the goal, you may have 5, 6, 10, 100 objectives. And for every objective, there has to be one strategy. And then the strategy is broken down into actions, resources, and time. Now, what I liked about the beauty of this GOSART model was that if you think about a strategy, what you believe is a strategy, an objective, an activity, and a strategy all have the same wording. So that's where the challenge comes. Are you actually performing an action, or is this actually a strategy which you're going to follow? Or is this just an objective of the company? So therefore, you have to be very clear. And therefore, I've spent a lot of time that you can't get to strategy unless you first define your goals and you define all the objectives you have to reach to be able to achieve your goal. And then you decide what is the appropriate strategy for every objective. And again, I'll repeat, I learned that every objective can only have one strategy. You can't have multiple strategies because then it's like a shotgun. You're just pressing the trigger and hoping that you'll get a customer or you'll hire the right kind of people, etc. So I think I'll start with that. The second point which you mentioned is about my experience in the technology industry. Technology industry, and especially technology, has a shelf life of a banana, which means that every day you have to be constantly aware of what's happening, what is evolving. And between the invention of a technology and its actual application, and it's becoming mainstay, takes a huge amount of time. That's why not only has technology the shelf life of a banana, but technology companies also have shelf life of a banana. You'll find that steel companies have been there for many years, hundreds of years. But a lot of the technology companies I worked for don't exist anymore. Digital Equipment Corporation, Sun Microsystems, none of them existed. And even the company I last worked for, Microsoft, was about to disappear. And then, it did the right stuff. So let me talk about strategy in that context. One of the examples I'd like to share is that of Sun Microsystems. At its peak, it was the first company to achieve $1 billion, I think, in the shortest period of time, 1 year or 2 years. It invented the workstation, then it became the server company, and it even coined the phrase, the network is the computer, which basically was the beginning of cloud computing. But there were many elements, many goals, many objectives, but one of the strategies which they adopted was that they believed that this network is the computer was all going to be based upon very large, high performance server systems, very expensive, and people had to buy those and put them into their data centers, and you could virtualize everything around the data center and people could access that. And they believed that hardware was the way to get the distinctive competitive edge. Because Scott McNealy, the founder, once made a statement that as long as you can't download hardware over the internet, my business model is safe. And therefore, I will charge hardware, but I will give the software away for free. And then what happened to Sun? Intel commoditized the whole server market, and nobody was willing to pay $1 million a pop for a server. And Sun Microsystems went into gradual decline. And what was left thereafter, which was bought by Oracle, was the software part of the business. So that's a great story of a company with a great culture, huge impact on the industry. The technology still lives on, but it made a wrong choice of strategy at a very crucial part of its reinvention as a company.